Good morning. It's Wednesday morning and it's 9 o'clock. So here we are with Norma Talks. I have been contemplating for some time to do a series of talks around the tarot. And it came to me that this is a good time to start. So today we're going to be looking at the aces of the Lower Arcana, but I wanted to give some explanation of some of the things that around the tarot. I use the Rider-Waite, what's known today as the Rider-Waite deck. Now, the Rider-Waite deck comes from the two names of this. Arthur Waite, I believe his name was, created the storyline, created the outline. Rider came along later and colored it in. The early ones were in black and white, but the actual artist of all the different symbology was a woman by the name of Pamela Coleman Smith. Now, she actually, everything, if you ever look, there's a little signature down there because she drew them all. They weren't, as I said, Rider came along and colored them. But she died penniless. She was never given any credit for all the work she did. And that her and Arthur Waite were part of the Order of the Golden Dawn, and which was a metaphysical society where they explored a lot of different things. I'm just putting that out of the way. And so that was one of the sad things. I've been to a number over the years of tarot conferences, and a lot of the women were really, really upset about that she has never, ever, ever got any attention or recognition, except now. A lot of people call it the Waite Coleman deck. Whatever. It was done, it was designed, and then eventually colored in. And I like the way it's colored in. I think it helps in lots of ways to get the information that goes on with that. Now, I'm going to start today by talking about the Lower Arcana. We'll go through the numbers of the Lower Arcana as we go. So the aces are like number 1, and they are the beginning of each section. So we begin, first of all, with the wands, the Ace of Wands. My finger's over there, but it says Ace of Wands, the beginning. Now, I'm going to put this quite close to the camera because I want you to see some of the little intricacies that are there. You have a wand that comes out, but actually, when you look at it, it's coming out of the cloud, and every ace does that. It comes right out of the cloud. You notice it's got sprigs of leaves on here, but there's some falling. There's a castle in the background, which my fingers were covering, and then there's a river, which we call the River of Life. Now, the interesting thing is, I'm just going to count them again. 1, 2, 3 on one side, 1, 2, 3 above. And this is the interesting thing. It's got a little sprig at the top too with 4 on it. But if you look closely above and below here, there's 3 and then a 1. And then at the top, they've got 4, because 4, as we will find when we get to the number 4, is solidity. This is all about a new idea that comes into your mind. Out of nowhere, you have an idea. And that is an inspirational element. And for me in particular, used to get ideas all the time. And it's like it comes in. And I forgot to mention, over the river, there's a river here, the River of Life, but over here is the Castle of Dreams. In other words, that's the goal. When you have an idea, it has a journey with it and of the goal that you want to reach. And sometimes those are very easy to reach, and sometimes they're not so easy to reach. But originally, everything comes from an idea, one thought. Everything you look around that's been created through time, somebody had the thought. Somebody went on the way it works and how it comes together and things like that. So there are all sorts of thoughts that you can have. I've in my life, I've had a lot of different thoughts. Some I've attempted and some haven't worked, and some I have done and created new things to do and work with. Books, things like that kind of flow in one day, and then you think about it, you contemplate it, which we will look at number 2. But originally is like, there is the idea, the beginning, the newness, the awareness. And often what happens, people ignore that. They have an idea and it's like, oh yeah, and they let it go. So it's gone, but the idea has come still. And it is usually like, we want to look at an inspirational idea that will take you to an end result, which is the castle of dreams. So and everything is a journey, and it's over that river of life, because life presents obstacles, ease, help. A lot of it is basically being able to assimilate and know. Now, that is the mental element. The second set of symbols is the cups. This is my favorite symbol. I'm going to try to get it right up so you can sort of see. It's my favorite symbol. Always has been. I just love it, what it means and what it shows. Basically, the dove brings in the sacrament, if you follow it down here, into the cup, which has the little symbol there representing the union of above and below, and the water streams. And I didn't really write down all the different symbology before, I should have. And then down here there's a river with some lily pads, and it's all numbered. So the numbers are important. And it's like the numbers that you have of drops of water, when you bring them down to the lowest number, is significant. The lily pads and the water lilies, all of these are significant. But to me, and all I can talk about is this part here was the most significant. The allowing of the dove of peace, the allowing of the energy from above, spiritual energy, if you want to call it, energy of the universe. I don't mind it. I call it, well, anyway, it represents the dove, right? The dove is peace, bringing that peace, that information, the sacrament in, and the life overflows into there's 5 streams that come from that. Now, in those 5 streams, it's like that's all of our senses. So we add to that, but then the key being this union sign, as above, so below. So it's like incorporating. Now, water in the cup symbology, and water represents the emotions. So here in the Ace of Wands, we have an idea, but here we have the emotion. And if you are going to create something, you have an idea, but then you've got to have emotion, commitment, if you will, to go, forward in the direction of where you want to go. So it's all, these first 2 work together. You're ready to go ahead. But then, of course, does everything go the way that one wants it? Rare. So now we have the Ace of Swords. Now, the Ace of Swords, as it comes out, one sword held by the hand, and actually the other 2, the hands have come from one side of the card. This one comes from the other side. It has, let me look at this again. The palm, next time I'm going to have my book close by to be able to interpret it a little bit easier. How come I thought I would remember every little thing? The palm trees and forgotten the other one. These 2 that come from the crown. So there's a problem. Now we have a problem. And if you've started any enterprise, you know that pretty soon you run into a problem. So this comes from a different side. The water down here, which is, the emotional that we have, where it was all placid in the Ace of Cups, is now not placid at all. It's actually quite rough. I'm going to get as close as I can. You'll see it's quite rough. And this is what happens. But if you also look closely, we call them yards of light, but there's these 3 yards on each side, making 6. Now, if you go forward into the High Arcana, 6 is the Lovers, which is confusion and emotional. So now we have another aspect that's brought in. How do you solve the problem as it comes up? And that's why this is crowned over up here, because we have a problem now, and we have, again, talking about aspiring above, to be able to resolve the issue. We need to crown it. We need to take care of it. We need to know that it's okay. So it's like when we're looking at this here, we have an idea, we have the emotional element about it, we get inspired, because that's what the Ace of Cups does. It is an inspiration because it comes from above. We have a mental idea, but now we've got bringing in the energy of the universe. And then we have a problem that we have to resolve. And the key is not to get confused about it, but again, utilizing what you know to be able to resolve it, to go ahead. And then the result is in the Ace of Pentacles. Pentacles represent the material world, the money, the things that we touch and deal with. And here we've got roses and lilies. And when we come to the Higher Arcana, which we won't for a few weeks, is that the magician has the red roses above and the white lilies below it. We call it the flowers of aspiration, to aspire. And then there is this hedge, and if I remember rightly, it has a few roses in it. Again, what we're aspiring to. The pathway that leads through here goes out, and there are some mountains in the background. See, most people don't have a thought and an inspiration, and then everything's fine. The majority doesn't. We have things we have to overcome and deal with and work with. And within this, the pathway leads through. But it's like, here you are, here it goes. It is now materialized. And that's a point that many people forget, is that you can have all the thoughts in the world, which is the Ace of Wands, all of them. Like I'm a thought factory, over the years. But it's putting the energy and connecting it with the Ace of Cups so that we can overcome the issues that come up. I know a lot of people have the thoughts and the energy, and they run into the first, what would you call it, problem, or something not working, and they run away from it. It's as though everything's supposed to be clear, but that's not about life. Life has and does have a tremendous amount of challenges, and part of our, you might say, job is meeting those challenges. Now, over the years, I would have these ideas of different things, and I would create them. I'm just going to use an example of, I got into doing hugs, and I went, nobody has any hug T-shirts or anything. And my son at the time was in art at high school, and we knew the art teacher, so he began to make the silk screen shirts for me, regular T-shirts and sweatshirts. And so when we went off to the trade shows where I was reading, we also created the hugs booth, and he and his girlfriend hugged people. Come and have a hug, and sold the shirts, etc. And so we learned how to hug effectively. But that was an idea I had. It seemed like nothing, a lot of people were talking about it, but they weren't doing it. So I started doing workshops on how to hug effectively. And for years, I was known to hug people. Didn't matter who, what, when, where. If they wanted a hug, they could have one. And then, of course, as a few years went by, my son graduated, and his girlfriend graduated and parted. And anyway, to make a long story short, eventually that little enterprise, it was only a little enterprise, but it went away. But I had made up a prescription as a business card. And oh boy, I'd have to rake my brain. 4 hugs for survival, I think 8 hugs for maintenance, 12 hugs for growth. Anyway, I had more letters, because we're still in the day of people writing letters, about this prescription from back east in Canada and other places, wanting to know where they could get the prescription. And one lady, Becky's, I said, here, if you want to duplicate this, you go ahead. I don't mind because I'm on some other things now. But that came out of an idea that we felt was appropriate for the time. And then we ran into a little bit of we have to where am I going to get the t-shirts? I had to learn where to buy the t-shirts and the sweatshirts. And my son, that teacher finally got a little bit upset with my son, and we had to straighten that out because he felt he was giving all these times to these hug shirts, and rather than exploring other art fields. He's very creative that way, my son. And he does carving, native carving and things like that. So he's carried on with that. And that produced for us a certain amount of money. Not a lot of money. It was more from the heart of wanting to hugs, but it did. We overcame the problems of, I found out where I could get a supply of t-shirts and sweatshirts. I found us, and was just a little at-home industry that we created for a few years. And yet it went in all sorts of places. People would come by and buy them, and you'd see people wearing them. We had a couple of designs. And that came from an idea that I had because I was one of the things that I began to do. I was not a hugger. I was not a hugger at all, and became very much one because often I'd be in their little, stall, and anybody coming by, they get a hug. And then I eventually learned how to hug clients because they were coming in and out and, stuff. So your ideas can be creative because there's a need or you have an idea. And I've operated a lot of my life by that, like something comes to me. And so that would be, in some ways, the idea is the inspiration, but then you've got to bring the higher power in to help and then deal with the problems. I find a lot of people, when they're doing things, don't recognize that there is a problem. They have problems or will have problems. Everything needs to get ironed out. And how you deal with that is, and I'm just going to show you this Ace of Swords again, is you aspire above. See how it's crowned? You aspire above to solve it. And it has as I said, I'm going to have the book in front of me next time, so I've got these things down. I just didn't think about I'm going to talk about aces. I know a lot about what's going on. Of course, I read them all the time. And it's then you manifest into the world. So nothing manifests, well, I won't say nothing because sometimes they do, but there's a process. You have the thought, you have the emotion behind it, you solve the issue around it, and it manifests into the material world. And if you don't take in all those 4 steps to manifest, and if something is missing, like you have the idea, but you forget there will be issues. You have the idea, but you don't ask for kind of the blessing of this idea. Find out what's happening. What are you needing? Because there are always a few things that you got to resolve. But the Ace of Swords, I find people usually overlook. Because, well, I've had this great idea and it's got to work. Well, does it really? And what do you need to make that idea work? Because to manifest it materially, you're going to have some basic physical things. It's going to manifest materially for you to get that benefit. Oh, you can have a wonderful idea, and and it may not be a business idea. It may not be a situation that's like, we used to go to California a lot. Now we're in BC, 2 kids. So I break out laughing for some of the things that we did. When you're young, you tend to think of life just, you take it and you grab it. We ended up at one point having a sort of what would you call that? It was, we had some station wagons, which meant we could make beds for the kids in the back. But this particular year, there were teenagers, I think, early teenagers. And we had this old Jeep type thing that one of those ones where you would switch where the gas works. You work off gas A and then you switch to gas B, except it didn't switch very well. And And the US, with which we were driving through at night, was in some kind of gas crisis, and there wasn't that much gas available. And I remember as we were in Oregon late at night, well, it was probably early morning by that time, and we were looking for a gas station that would be open so that we could get. Eventually, we were in Nevada and we literally ran out of gas. And my husband had to, hitchhike into Vegas to get a can to come back and get on. We were out there looking. The kids were they were babies at that time. They're quite like they're teenagers. We're looking at the desert and finding things, and we would find rocks to sit on while we're waiting. But we finally got the gas, and my husband came back. The gas was in the car. And if you follow, it's like we've got an idea of to go. That will really, because we always went south over the Christmas holidays, or some part of the holidays. As well, all the sun bunnies. And but we ran into these problems because we didn't think. We hadn't thought that they had a gas crisis across the line. So, but we manifested and we kept manifesting and we finally got to it. So it all falls into place once you begin to understand the process, because people think, that what you want is going to work, especially in today's age, I find. They don't realize there's issues that come up. Excuse me. But anyway, those are the aces. That is the beginning of the journey. So my goal is that next week we're going to look at number 2s of the Lower Arcana, because we have an idea. So then what happens? What we do with that? What do we do with this idea? This explains the process of manifesting from an idea, but there is a need to incorporate, I'm going to call it the divine, or the divine inspiration. Because we have many ideas, but it doesn't inspire us to do anything. But when we kind of see the bigger picture, or we feel it grabs our heart or our whole mind of what we want to do, then we solve the problems. I really do find so many people don't expect any issues. They think everything is going to be smooth sailing. And I think that's a part of our culture right now to a large degree. Like, we just don't consider that there's going to be any obstacles at all. And the thing is, when an obstacle comes along, do you go into confusion, or do you do what you got to do to resolve it? And it all works out. Like, here we were in the middle of the desert. I haven't thought of this story for a long time. And what do you know? Somebody comes along, sees my husband on the side of the road with his thumb out, picks him up, takes him all the way into Vegas. In the meantime, myself and 2 kids are out there sitting on rocks, looking at the desert, waiting for him to get back. But it got resolved, and we did get to Vegas. And yeah. Gas crises. There you go. So we weren't considering that, I guess, with this crazy old vehicle. We didn't have that vehicle very long. Mostly we went with, because the kids could lie in the back. And so so anyway, that's life, how it begins. And so we're going to do in the next few weeks, all of a sudden I'm croaking on all the memories. In the next few weeks, we're going to go through the Lower Arcana, and then we're going to begin the Higher Arcana. So you can understand the philosophy of to some degree, of where I come from. And when I do my readings, how the symbols form, we can link the story together, because everybody's life is a story. And that's the whole thing, is to unfold the story, find where we're stuck and when we're not stuck. Like, if you don't think when you've got an idea that you got to look at also what maybe the issues are, because that's what I find with our society a lot, is that we're very altruistic. Like, I've had this idea. It'll be easy to put into, and then it isn't, because there are obstacles that need to be overcome. And so it's nice, though, when we look at the Ace of Pentacles, and it all manifests exactly how we want. but it's the beginning. And what happens next? Because that's what the interesting thing is. We've got everything prepared. We know what we're doing. We've taken care of the obstacles. We're ready to go. Now what happens? It's called life, and what makes life interesting. So today's the first day, number 1. All the aces, all the number 1s. Next Wednesday will be number 2. 2 is always interesting because it's about balancing. And how do we balance things? How do we do that? And it tells us. It tells us that's what I loved about it when I first got to learn how to read these this way that I was taught. And how do we balance our lives? So tune in next Wednesday or rewatch it at some point and you will find out. And and hopefully my voice has decided it's going to stay good. I just want to say hi to CC99, thanking them. I'm presuming it's female actually, that for her comment. So I will be back on Sunday morning with Sunday Thought, and back, of course, on Monday for Mental Mind Treatments. I want to thank you for your thumbs up. I want to thank you for those of you that are subscribing. I want to thank you for everything that's that you comments. I just love the comments that are made often, and I really endeavor to answer them. Maybe not right away, but within a week. That's my goal anyway. So I sit down and answer all the comments we have. You have a good day. And remember, if you get inspired, just remember that there is a bigger journey than just being inspired by an idea. Because some people, I find, when they come to see me and they've had an idea and then I take a look and there's been no base. They've forgotten to look at what issues could come up to be resolved. There's many other little things. But mainly, we just carry through life and create and hopefully be happy, be enjoyable, enjoy the process. I'm going to say bye now, and I'll see you on Sunday morning. Bye now.